This podcast could potentially have adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly the possibility of sexual content. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I am your host, Erica Lance. My co-host with me today is the amazing and very teal-colored Bo Lake. Hey, I love it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps us know you're listening, and we just do it. It's in your hands right now, so it could happen. Okay, and our guest today is the amazing, I actually meant Dragon Con, Austin Camacho. Woo! Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking first, because it is midday, so it should be appropriate. So you can kind of see this on the YouTube. I have limeade, and I was in Tennessee for a wedding, and I got Tennessee Moonshine Company has moonshine cherries. So now I'm into making cherry limeade, but with moonshine cherries. I may have had a few of these cherries before we started this podcast. That may have happened. Needless to say. It's very, very good. Okay, I also have some ridiculous liqueur, but anyway. Bo, what are you drinking, my friend?
As usual, I am drinking a Blue Moon because it is my favorite.
I like it, and the label matches your hair today.
I know. It's like I did it on purpose.
I would get paid for the product placement.
You know what? I wish some of these people would pay us for product placement. We do a lot of product stuff.
Call me Blue Moon. Call me.
Yes, call us. Hashtag sponsor us. Okay, Austin, what are you drinking with us today?
Well, as it happens, I have a good friend in Ohio where they sell Everclear, which we are not allowed to have in Maryland. And he makes apple pie, which is what this is.
Ooh.
And it's very sweet, it's very tasty, and you have to be very careful. So by the time we get to the third segment, if you guys want to take a break and come back tomorrow or something,
No, that's why we do it as the third segment. That's why we do it that way.
Okay.
Hashtag proper planning. Okay. So Austin, for those out there in the world that are listening that maybe do not, or watching, they could be watching us, I forgot, on YouTube. Hi, YouTube, commands. What do you write?
I write mysteries and I write action thrillers. The mysteries feature an African-American protagonist named Hannibal Jones, who works in Washington, D.C. And the thrillers are about Morgan Stark and Felicity O'Brien, who are a mercenary soldier and a jewel thief who have quit their lives of crime and formed a personal security company.
Oh.
So you can get into all kinds of trouble.
I like it. Gosh, that sounds like a TV show. Doesn't that sound like a TV show?
It does.
From like your words. Yeah.
Someone call Netflix because I want to see that.
Exactly. I was going to say, or any of the streaming services. I have many. We'll take it on any.
HBO would be good.
Not Paramount Plus. That's the only one I don't want it on. I'm good everywhere else.
Okay.
Paramount Plus, no. But there are many to choose from. Well, okay. So, Austin, when did you begin your writing journey? Like, where did this all start?
Well, been a rabid mystery reader all my life and thriller fan all my life. And back in the day when I was in the Army, I just thought, geez, I'd like to try this. I wonder if it's possible. And I had that in the back of my head for several years. There was this particular day when I was reading a mystery novel, and I was like a third of the way through it, and I knew everything that was going to happen after that.
Oh.
And I said, well, hell, I can do better than that. And sadly, my wife at the time heard me. And we had one of those, oh, no, you couldn't. Oh, yeah, I could. No, oh, yeah. So that resulted in me actually deciding, okay, let's put my money where my mouth is. And that's when I wrote my first novel, which was The Troubleshooter. Set in Washington, D.C., which is, we live in a suburb. And then I discovered that I really love that process, and it's great fun. So I kept on.
Very cool. I see now I have a dog breaking and entering. What are you coming in? Are you coming in or are you staying out? You're kind of, oh, it's not open enough for you?
I love him so much.
You see how he just okay,
Yeah.
thank you for interrupting the podcast. That's okay. We're gonna continue
He had that
on.
look on his face like, is it okay?
Yeah.
Can I come in?
No, he was like, is it fine? Is it fine? I'm just gonna, because I heard it and I was like, is that the cat trying to break in? Because he's supposed to be upstairs with his dad, but no.
Good.
Rebel. Okay.
No.
That's fine. Hello, technology. Okay. Well, that's amazing. So what your first book was titled?
The Troubleshooter.
The Troubleshooter. And when did that come out?
Initially in 1999, I self-published it. And then, I wanted to see, would anybody else actually want to read this? And I got 2 or 3 bites, so I did it again. And after I had 3 books, a small press picked me up, and I've been running ever since.
Very cool. Who's the small press that picked you up?
I'd rather not say.
Oh, I thought that was positive. Never mind. We can let it go.
We came to a disagreement, mostly about the commitment to promote. So I went back and was self-publishing again. And then I and 2 friends who aren't too bright formed Intrigue Publishing, which is who publishes me now. It was along with about a dozen other authors.
That's very cool. So I love that. As we have a small press as well, or actually, I think technically it's considered medium size now because we have over 100 authors. So,
Okay.
But I think it's
Medium.
fantastic when you do that because this is not an easy world to be in.
Right.
And you mentioned the marketing component. I know quite a few people that, to do self-publishing now or any kind of, you do have to do marketing. Like it doesn't matter. You have to decide your commitment to it because it takes a bunch to be successful. We all hope, knock on wood, that we get a bestseller that everybody loves. And by bestseller, I mean sells a lot, not on a list that says it's a bestseller. I want it to actually generate profit. That's a bestseller to me. That's the tag. Like, I am making money off my book. That's a bestseller to me. We should change the lingo. So it's not like New York Times bestseller. It's, hi, I've actually been paid for my book bestseller. Go
Paid
team.
the rent bestseller. That's what we're looking for. I often tell authors when they pitch to us that they need to understand that what we really are is venture capitalists. We're investing in your thing with the hopes that this is the one that will make us enough money to support the last 9 guys.
Exactly.
Who each sold 400 copies and they're all happy and they're not doing anything anymore. So
No, totally. Yes. Agree 1000%. That's what I tell my authors too, is like, if we don't get you successful, we're not going to be successful. So you cannot sit on your laurels. And I looked that up, so I know what that means. You cannot sit on your laurels and hope that somebody will actually just come along and throw money at you for writing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so how many books total do you have out now?
Me?
You.
I have a dozen novels in print, and 1 sitting with an agent, and 1 in process.
Very cool.
But
Very
12
cool.
that are out there. 7 of them are the Hannibal Jones series, and 5 of the Stark and O'Brien.
Very cool. That's actually a huge accomplishment, though.
Well,
to have that many books out.
I close to 1 a year. sort of, kind of. But in the middle of writing a novel, I always start getting ideas for another book. So there's never a not writing. There's never a time when I'm, just like staring into space or watching TV. Every day I add a few pages to my opus.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I know very few writers. There's a few, and I call them, Jeff Strand happens to be one of them, and I coined this term because he's a friend of mine. I love him to death. He's a humorous horror writer. I don't know if you've met him, but he's adorable. But
Okay.
I don't know if he'll be happy I just called him adorable, but Jeff, deal with it. He is what I call a method writer, because he sits down, has an idea, has a plot, and it's not like he does a whole bunch of laying it out exactly. He knows the beats he wants it to have. He knows where it's going, but he just sits down and writes. His characters don't take the book away from him. He doesn't, it's not that he didn't have other ideas, but he just does that and he gets the book done, which to his credit, he's, 40 books deep or something like that now. Yeah. And I think, it's interesting. I just literally today, this episode is going to air later. There was a thing that came out from Written Word Media about what it takes to be successful, right? And it talks about how many books, and it literally says stage 1 is 5 books published. Stage 1,
Okay.
5 books. Stage 2, 10 books published, right? Stage 3, 23 books published, and it goes up to 50. So it talks about being successful, and it literally says, stage 1, 5 books published, average income $0 to $250 a month.
So it's about putting out content, not so much just like being active on social media or doing all these other things. You're not successful unless you have 5 books out or more.
Yeah.
The guys I have seen, and gals, I use that term generically, guys, the writers I have seen who are really making it are fast. And in my sense, fast means you can drop 2 or 3 novels every year consistently. I'm not that guy. I wish I was. But if you can get that next book out before news of the old one is cold, that appears to be the trick.
No, it's true. And I think that it's so interesting. We get so divergent on these shows, but I think it's true because it's the point that writing successfully and understanding where you're going to make money. And that's not saying every single person falls into that bucket. It's saying there is an average, there is a thing. You have to hit a number of readers, you have to do that. But if you think about, you hit a number of readers, you do 1 book a year, your readers are all going to click buy on that 1 book a year, and then there's nothing. So you have to find new readers to buy that book and your back catalog of books. And, you have to create a momentum. And if it's only 1 book, you're going to get readers once. They're not going to buy the book 10 times, maybe if they're giving it to friends, but in general, no.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
So mystery thriller, are those the main genres you write in? Do you write anything else?
I don't really.
It's not bad. I'm just asking.
I think I know some people that write all over the map, but I don't read all over the map. So I write what I enjoy reading. I don't really get a kick out of reading science fiction or fantasy or horror, those kinds of things. I have some good friends that write that stuff, but it's just not for me. I imagine if I had to, I could.
Yeah.
But it's just not what I do. There's 2 kinds of fun for me in this. One is building the puzzle. Here's who did it. Here's how we find out, and building that trail that the reader has to follow to get to, hopefully, to get to figuring it out just before I tell them. Right. So the fun of building the puzzle. And the other thing, the thrillers, I guess that's what you'd call them. I enjoy, I guess I would coin a subgenre myself. I really like writing, how the hell are you going to get out of this books? Right. I just dig a hole as deep as I can and drop my heroes into it. And then I go, hey, wait a minute. How am I going to, you know?
I love that. I write horror thriller too.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting. Like, I feel like almost thriller is almost like mystery, but like 10 times more tension, I think. Like,
Okay.
that's you know,
Okay.
you look at a cozy mystery and it's you know, intertwined, but thriller, you've got the stakes are so high to get out of this
Right.
situation.
Right. And you get the chance, and I'm sure as an author you can relate to this. You get the chance to just keep making it harder. you just keep turning it up. You know?
I love all of that because it's true. It's
Yeah.
1000% true. Oh my goodness. Okay, Bo, do you have questions? I know you always have questions.
You know, I always have questions. I always have a whole list.
I'm gonna let you go
Hit me,
before I
Bo.
normally wait till the second part, and then I'm like, Bo, just keep talking.
So what do you talk about dropping your characters in a hole and having them scrabble out of it? How do you outline that? Because I find that my characters will get stuck somewhere and then I'm stuck.
Ah, okay. Well, I do work to an outline. I am not a pantser in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think up this bizarre, absurd situation. And then this is an outline stage before I start writing. I have to figure out, well, how do you get out of that? And usually what happens is, oh, well, you can get out of that this way. That's too easy. So what it amounts to is 3 or 4 things that are obvious to try that don't work.
Mm.
And then they hit upon whatever it is. And because one of my characters is a military, has a military background.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is a thief, a jewel thief. So I have all of these different skills and toys I can play with
Mm-hmm.
to try to make it work. In the first book, when they're cornered by the giant guy who's going to kill them, and they have no weapons because that would be too easy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're surrounded by bad guys because running away would be too easy. And I said, well, okay, then now what? Okay, they're in the bad guys' study. Okay, let's postulate that he has liquor in there. Let's hit this guy over the head with a bottle hard enough for it to break. But that's
wow.
too easy. He's real strong, so he's not knocked out. So now what? Oh, let's have her grab that lighter off the table and light him up.
Wow.
So woof. And of course he goes crazy and turns around and ends up grabbing the big bad guy and they fall out a window on it. It's a whole thing. But the point is that if you keep making it harder,
Mm-hmm.
as a reader, I like to get to that point where I can't see how they can possibly survive this. So I try to write the reader into that position, but then I don't know how. I always think of some way to get him out of it. Hopefully, and it would work that way in real life if I'm stuck in a burning building or bomb shelter or something. I don't know.
Burning
I like
building,
that
bomb
answer.
shelter, just anywhere.
If I'm trapped in a cave and there's nobody in there except werewolves and vampires, hopefully something would come to me.
You seem
like
very good at problem solving, so you might be able to figure it out.
But problem making too. So
I love it. Let's talk. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What does your typical writing day look like?
Oh, well, now that I am retired from real world income, I get up in the morning, generally speaking, make coffee, feed cats, help my wife assemble a lunch and push her out the door. I watch maybe an hour of the morning news because I like to be plugged into what's going on in the world. And aside from that, it's a rich source of story ideas. And then, okay, it's 7-ish, and I sit down and I bang the keys for a couple hours. And then I stop and do other things. I do the Facebook thing. I do some marketing stuff because you got to do that every day. And then I eat lunch, and then I sit down and I might put in another hour or two, depending on where I am in the process. For me, some of that time, it might simply be like where I am right now. It might simply be sit down and hit keys, and have the objective of, okay, let's see if I can't find 1,000 good words today. But sometimes it's kind of stare into space-time and jot on a notepad what will eventually evolve into my outline. My outlining process is iterative. So I make a short outline, and then it just keeps getting longer and longer as I add things happening and incidents. It's just the plot when I'm outlining. And sometimes I could spend a month outlining, but then I can sit down and just write. And that's the part that I really love.
So you said you put out one book a year. How long does it take you to finish your first draft in general?
I might go 6-7 months on the first draft. Well, that's including outline time.
Okay.
And then I'm in a very, very good critique group of people who are better writers than I am, which took me, that was a long time. I really hated being in a critique group 3 times in a row because I was the best writer in the room, so I wasn't getting anything out of it. I was just giving. But now I'm getting. But then I will do a quick rewrite, mostly looking for stupid mistakes, like they've been going for what would be 48 hours and no one has stopped to eat or anything, so I need to do, and then I do a more laborious, slow rewrite where I'm paying real close attention to where the beats are and making sure that the dialogue is different from one character to the next and all of that nitpicky stuff.
Okay.
And that takes a couple, 3 months. So yeah, just about a year from beginning to end.
That's good. So you sound like you're a plotter. Like you squarely have to outline, you have to do all those things. All the ducks have to be in a row.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't, literally inconceivable to me, as they say in my favorite movie, inconceivable to me how people write mysteries without an outline. How in the world can you just sit down and start typing and be planning clues and know who the bad guy is and know who the secondary bad guy is and all it? I don't get it. I have to be able to see it step by step by step by step. It's the only way I know.
I have a question, and then we're going to cut to a break. So you say that, what, if you don't mind me asking, what did you do previously in life?
Oh, I was, well, after my brief experiment in the U.S. Army, I was a public affairs officer for the Department of Defense. Most of that time working for TRICARE, which is the military's healthcare system. So I was, my profession was communicator.
Well,
Mostly
that actually makes perfect sense why you would
complex
need to know
things.
that.
Oh, you see the drift. Okay.
I did. That's why I was going back to it. I have an HR background. I was like, let me go back in time here and go, where, because I think you find that to be the case with a lot of writers, is that, you know, how they've been successful in whatever career choices. It's not the job itself, it's the lens itself. Doing anything regardless around things in the military and things in public relations and stuff like that, you have to be you cannot fly by the seat of your pants. Not that you don't have to jump and be able to react quickly, but as we all see with certain press releases or things posted, that we were like, oh, you don't have a PR firm at all, do you, my little friend? They just posted that.
The most important thing I learned from that, almost like muscle memory, but the most important thing I learned was that I can't wait for some muse to come tap me on the shoulder with inspiration and say, go to the keyboard and create. I was in an environment where write it now. Here's your deadline.
Yeah.
And so I'm geared to that. I sit down and it happens. Which is why I also don't understand writer's block. That's a concept I can't wrap my head around.
You know, to me, writer's block, and I might get hate mail for saying this, and then we are absolutely taking a break, but I don't think people actually legitimately get what, writer's block. I think one of two things happens. Number one is they walk themselves into some sort of corner and they need to go back whatever amount of steps, and I hate to say it, could be a couple chapters, and go left instead of right, because wherever they went to, they're not getting out of. So it's not really writer's block. It's not like but you've backed yourself into a corner, and we've all done this. We've all done this, where like you're trying to get the story to go and then it just doesn't, right? Or you have other things impeding on your life, and you're, like with me, I have friends that writing is a stress reliever to them. I hear that a lot of times. It's a stress reliever. It's a stress reliever. It is not a stress reliever to me. It's not stressful, but for me, I cannot have like raw happening in the background, because if I do, I can't, the way I think or overthink, as my therapist might say, you know what I mean? Like, I do though. I'm one of those people that has a hard time, if there's a problem going on, going to sleep, because I'll just be thinking about it the whole time. So because of that, I think that, you have to be in whatever the correct headspace is, because it's not writer's block. It's that your attention is somewhere else instead of on what you're actually doing.
I get you. I think that I am fortunate in that I am able to compartmentalize my head to the extent that I do. But I think most people can and choose not to. It's pretty rare to hear a mom say, wow, I was so stressed out and distracted today that I just couldn't feed that baby. Or, I just couldn't make dinner. I just couldn't. No, the things you got to do, you do. Writing is one of the things I got to do. And so when I sit down at the keyboard, all that other stuff gets turned off or gets put in a box.
No, I think
it's writing time. And then when writing time is over, it's, stress about the bills time or whatever.
I'm trying to get to that point where I can do it. I've got many exercises working on, so that I'm not like trying to type something and then I'm like, but the car and blah, blah, blah. And it's not the car I'm writing. It's like something about the car or the house or the dog or the whatever. So, oh my gosh, we need to take a quick break. We will be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Zoom, you weren't giving me the record button. We're back. I was in a fight with it for a moment there. Okay. Let's talk about fan reaction, because you wrote your first book. You said, I wrote it and I was like, let's see if the 3 people that I think will read it are doing that. No, just kidding. So how did that go to start? Like your
Well-
first, because that sounds like that could have been the make or break point for you.
It's funny because in a way it was, in a very real sense it was. If that first book and everybody had said, that was a waste of my hours, then I may not have continued. But because I was already a fan, I was going to conferences and so forth. And I was sticking my book into people's hands, whether they really wanted one or not. And the phenomenon was that writers that I respected started emailing me saying, hey, this is really good stuff. And, so then I started trying to sell them online. This kind of predates ebooks by just a little bit. So physical books are harder to sell. And then one day I walked into a bookstore and said, hey, can I sit here and sign my books? And luckily they said, hey, we can arrange that. In those days, Borders was everywhere. There were probably 20 Borders bookstores within 50 miles of my house. And for a couple of years, 3 years, for 3 years, I was in a Borders every weekend. And I would sit there and I would sign 15, 20 books in 2 or 3 hours. I was happy. They were happy because I brought people in the door, and life was good. And then Borders went away. But that's how the momentum, that's how the rolling got going.
I like it. I like it. I think true though, there are a lot of independent bookstores now that authors can do that same thing of walk in and go, hey, I'd like to sign. I think authors have a fear of rejection and therefore don't reach out and go, I can go to the library, I can go to my local bookstores, even Barnes and Noble. You'll be amazed if you get a good manager there. It's totally fine, especially if you're willing to bring your books. You know,
I have to tell, where are you?
Oh, where do
geographically?
Oh, I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
And I'm in Virginia.
I can tell you that this is a very regional thing. Here where I am, there might be 8 privately owned bookstores within 50 miles of my house. There might be 8. And the Barnes and Nobles in this area have 0 interest in local authors. And I've talked to enough people to know that it's not just me. It's not they don't like me. It's like, I don't know your name. You're not on a bestseller list. And I don't have time for you because, we're Barnes and Noble and we make all our money selling coffee and puzzles and greeting cards. And yeah, there's some books in here, but I don't know anything about them.
Like, it's all about Funko Pops in the Barnes and Noble.
Well, and I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, I actually think that is partially that Barnes and Noble, because I know just from our authors being at Barnes and Nobles in other places, it's a lot on who you get is receptive to it, because that's what happens. Is that it's who is receptive, because the local managers, especially now that Barnes and Noble's contracts with like Macmillan and HarperCollins are expiring, and they're kind of like, screw you, we don't have to put the books you tell us to, we can find books. That's how you see it. Like Barnes and Noble's have book talk tables now. I don't know if yours does, but all over the place they have book talk, because they finally keyed into going back. Look at, I'm going full circle, even with the cherries I've eaten. To what I said earlier about best-selling and what are bestsellers versus what we're being fed and told are the bestsellers.
Right. What the New York Times list in general, a big generalization here, those books are bestsellers before any reader buys one.
Right.
They're bestsellers based on the number that Barnes and Noble has committed to buy.
That is my exact point. It's, I forget who put out a thing, and I saw it and I really wish I had saved it because it's come up so full circle, is that oh my gosh, I'm going to use all my words. The New York Times bestseller, less than 10% of them make any money off of their books.
And that's pretty scary.
And it's true with the USA Today bestsellers too. Less than a certain percent make any money off of their books.
The difference between major publishers and, I shouldn't say this out loud, but you know, apple pie. The difference between major book publishers and guys like you and me is that those guys, the publisher makes all the money.
Right.
Yeah.
For us, the authors get paid.
So true. So
Right?
true.
Your authors are gonna make some money. Whether or not you make any money, on the other hand, yeah. But
No,
yeah, but I hear what you're saying
absolutely.
about Barnes and Noble. We have had much better luck with our authors who live distant. You know, we just call all the stores within 50 miles of the guy's house, and then we follow up with an email. And if the guys, the writers we have who are in Jersey, the writers we have who are in Philly, 8 or 10 bookstores, sure, we'll have you in. We'll order your books. Here's the date. So it's easier in some places than others. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. I do not disagree with what you're saying, but I think authors should give it a shot. They might find regionally doesn't work, but it's kind of, what is the saying? Like, no, I'm too drunk for the saying. But
well, I do agree with you that every author should at least try.
Yeah.
And I have found that if your book has a hook outside of just plain being a mystery or just plain being a thriller, you shouldn't just try bookstores. I've had one author who does pretty well signing in his local Hallmark store. I've got one lady who does really well in beauty parlors.
oh, wow.
Anywhere they'll let you sit and talk to people, ask them.
I agree 100%. And then cons and conventions and local markets, and there are so many places you could go, but you have to get out in front of people. Hoping people are going to find you.
No.
The
Absolutely.
algorithms are not skewed in your direction at all, my friend.
Correct. I tell my authors when we have this long conversation right before we sign the contract, but one of the things I tell my authors is go into your local Barnes and Noble, walk to the center of the store and do a slow 360. Now think about how many authors are in there and try to figure out how someone is going to find you in that mob. Because you got to have that perspective. There's an awful lot of product out there.
Yeah.
And there's an awful, people can go on Amazon and download on their ebook, okay, here's 10 novels for $1.99. That's what you're competing with.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think that there's a way to go about it, and you have to, and it's very different, and it changes every 5 minutes. What works with book talk, like any of us on this podcast, if somebody said to us, not that we're ancient, but I definitely have silver hair, had said to me 10 years ago, there's going to be this thing and people are going to talk about their books and little videos and everyone's going to buy them. And I would have been like, what?
You'd laugh.
No, that's not a thing. No, Facebook, no. And Facebook's going away and Twitter is
dying.
Whatever Twitter is,
Twitter may not be dying, but if it is, it's a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's interesting is also how social media is for different genre types.
Yes.
Like romance writers, absolutely Facebook. Hands down, romance, those kind of things, Facebook in a heartbeat. Not that you can't do other things, but man, if you get the little groups going and they can all talk and fantasy writers and, stuff like that. Yeah, but you go horror, thriller, that kind of thing, Twitter, sci-fi writers, Twitter.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I don't know why that is, but that's where the fan base is, And then you have Instagram. A lot of people can be successful on Instagram, but you have to be kind of social to do that. And you have to be willing to do funny things. And the look on your face tells me you are not a huge fan of Instagram.
Well, see, I don't really understand Instagram or TikTok, because those are essentially visual media, and I am essentially a word guy, not a picture guy. That's why Facebook is so comfortable for me. But I can't make the connection in my head between doing a funny stunt and selling books. And if you're going to be on TikTok, you got to do a funny stunt.
You do, and you have to find something that gets people's attention, but it's how people see things now. It's kind of like, even, how many people actually legitimately read the paper anymore in paper format? Right. I'm not saying people don't, but reading the paper is now scrolling through the news that's presented to you.
Yes.
And, it's so interesting because the news wasn't presented to you before. It was just the news that was in the paper, and you read the news that was in the paper. You could be in any sort of side of it, but depending on who you are, what the algorithms say, all three of us could type in the same phrase and share the screen, and we would have different things that were coming up on a news story.
Yes. Well, we'd have different things coming up because the machine knows what I'm interested in.
Yeah. It knows what you like.
Also, the machine knows what will get you riled up. That's the machine, and to take an action, to do something, whether that's correct or not.
Which is one reason I'm always so reluctant to search for anything online, because then I'm going to get all the ads from everybody else.
You don't have to search, you just have to think about it these days. If you just think about it, you'll suddenly
talk about it, and then suddenly it'll be on your Facebook feed or something.
What's worse is that anytime I buy something, which means I've already got it, okay? I buy something and then I get 500 ads from everybody else who sells something similar. And I look at those ads and I say, look, you missed the window.
It's over.
No, because they're like, you need to buy this other thing then. And this other thing.
This
and
competing thing.
The amount of, I joked a lot this weekend. We were at Galaxy Con. People are like, because our cash register had some blips, because it's con Wi-Fi, like whatever. Yeah. And I was like, people were yelling. I'm like, you be nice to our overlords there, because, like, they'll remember. Don't yell at the machines. Somebody sent me a thing that said you can get a washing machine that will tell you all this stuff, and even take a photograph of your laundry and send it to you, and there's a live feed. And I'm like, how is any of that necessary? Yes. Like, seriously, how is any bit of that necessary?
So I feel like I would love if my washer sent me like a push notification when my laundry was done, because I always forget about it, and it's on a different floor of my house.
See, that I could see that, but it's really funny because I was thinking last night I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I really like that show. I started watching it when I was Galaxy Con, and now I have to watch the whole thing all the way through. That entire show, I was telling my boyfriend, who did not watch it previously and is now no longer watching it after watching a couple episodes. He's like, how can you watch this? But regardless, it's my guilty pleasure. I said this entire series would have been dead if there was a cell phone. This entire thing. They would have had to rewrite the entire thing. Oh. And he's like, that's no. And we're sitting there watching it, and I go, something would come up, I'd go, cell phone. Something will come up, cell phone. Something would come up, cell phone. And he's like, oh my God. Because how many times they're gonna go look for somebody? Like, the whole show is they're going to look for people. Or angels trapped in a thing. Well, if he had a cell phone, he could call somebody and go, hey, I'm trapped in a thing.
I'm trapped. Help me out. Yes. And there'd be an alarm set that said sunrise in 15 minutes.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you raised that particular point because it's relevant to mystery writing as well. It is much more challenging for me than it was for any of my heroes in the 40s and 50s, specifically because they had to go find a phone. And I don't have the luxury of very easily putting my hero in a place where he can't find out what this other guy's doing, or he can't find out where people are or how to get to somewhere, because it's all right here.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you 100%. And it is interesting when you're thinking about writing is how do you get it so they can be in some of those positions where there's a problem or there's no cell signal. And even if you say there's no signal, that has to be realistic to people because they're like, yep, there's signal there. But trust me, there's a Lowe's store down the mountain from me. I'm on a mountain, by the way. And there is no cell signal in that Lowe's store. None. Wow. Nobody's cell phone works. It just happens to be a dead zone. They're like, well, you can use our free Wi-Fi. And I'm like, the hell I'm going to do that. That's not happening.
Because what I write is not, generally speaking, forensically based. I mean, I write old style, my hero finds out what happened mostly by talking to everybody and figuring out who's lying.
Yeah.
But I have to sometimes finesse it so that it's reasonable for him to go and be face to face with that individual instead of just doing his entire job on the phone interviewing people, which I think would be boring to read.
Yeah, you'd have to put a lot of work into that to make that something that people are like, man, this is a page turner. Wonder if he's going to put him on hold. Okay.
And I can tell you, I watch enough TV to be able to say this with authority. After the second time somebody picks up their phone and says, no signal, I'm done. It just doesn't happen that often to anybody. I'm through. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I actually, it's interesting. I also see that when people write, younger people write for times in the past, and I'm not talking about Victorian times, whatever. I don't know what kind of sugar cubes they had, and I don't give a shit. But when people write about like the 80s or the 90s, and I'm like, we did not have these things that you are mentioning. You know what I mean? It's in the 80s, and they're like, well, I took out my car phone, my cell phone. No, schnookums. No, let me explain car phones to you, or satellite phones when those did come out, what they look like. I put it in my pocket. The hell you did.
Like you're carrying it in a suitcase.
Yeah, exactly.
And even though there may have been desktop computers in the 1990s, they didn't have what we think of now as graphics.
Oh yeah.
My first 3 computers were just a screen with green lettering that I could type in. And then I would download that onto a disk because the computer didn't have enough memory to hold a book.
Oh yeah, show a floppy disk to a kid these days and just out of curiosity, what do you think this is?
Blank.
No idea. My kids are 24 and 26, and I remember the first time they saw a floppy disk because I have them. And I have the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game. It's a floppy, like a floppy. Can't play it because it's a floppy. And they were like, what is this? And I'm like, actually. Wow. So, and I didn't explain what it really was. And my daughter looked at me and she's like, I'm calling bullshit, Mom. These are the same kids that found my Blockbuster card and are like, oh my God, can we keep this? This is like an antique. And I'm like, You don't understand the definition of the word antique, but yes, you can have it. Oh my goodness.
It's
It's
astonishing
vintage,
that,
Mom.
Yeah.
that at one time, Blockbuster was a major business. And I can remember there being a record store in my town that was 3 stories high. Records no longer exist, I guess. I don't know. We've moved away from things to electrons. And
Yeah, no, you don't. Like somebody was selling CDs at the con I was at, and I'm like, what are you doing?
and what can you play them in? I was a
Yeah,
little annoyed. I was a little irritated when I bought this laptop, which is the first one I've bought that does not have a disk drive. I guess none of them have disk drives
Yeah.
now. So I can't upload the music that I already own to force it
Yeah.
onto my iTunes. I have to download from them. It's annoying. But what are you gonna do?
Oh, no, I'm 1000% with you. I actually do not think I have a device that plays CDs in my house. I still have CDs, but I don't think I have a single device in my house that plays CDs. So, wow,
Gotcha.
that's a whole interesting. Okay, Bo, final question.
All right,
Final
I'm gonna
question.
switch gears a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
What is your
What, you want to talk about
favorite?
writing?
Yeah, we're gonna go back to talking about writing. What is your favorite thriller and or mystery trope?
Oh, wow. I guess for mysteries, because I'm a private eye guy, it is the requirement that at some point the guy has to get hit over the head and knocked out. Because out here in the real world, you know, if you get, that's a concussion.
Yeah.
You get knocked out 2 or 3 times, after a while, you start to lose your cognitive ability.
You're not you anymore.
Yeah.
And people in books that I didn't write stay unconscious for a long time. And that's a concern. I mean, I watch boxing. I know how long people stay out when they get knocked out. Okay, it's a minute or 2. It's not an hour. If you're unconscious for an hour because somebody hit you, you got serious issues. Mysteries. For the thrillers, I think it's this general concept that you can create threats that will destroy the world. It's the scale of the threat.
Mhm.
And you know, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there just aren't that many ways to destroy the entire world. And if I can be allowed a second one, it's the
Yeah.
whole idea of huge, broad, wow, I lost the word, conspiracies. The idea that there could be a conspiracy in the federal government to do anything, really. You know, I worked in the Pentagon for several years, and I can tell you the guys in the E ring on the 5th floor have no idea what the guys on the 3rd floor in the B ring are doing. Conspiracy requires coordination, and I can tell you there aren't 15 people in the entire federal government who all know what each other is doing. So that's the trope that really bothers me. Okay. Good question, though. Nobody's ever asked me that.
That's what we do here on Drinking with Authors. We try to not ask the boring questions. We ask the ones we actually care about. Well, my dog finds that one particular carrot toy in the background.
Okay.
He likes to hit his nose against him to make him squeak. So he might do that in a minute. He brings, yep, that's what he's doing. He's like, let me make, that one's not squeaking. Let me grab another one that's squeaking. So is my life. Okay. So Austin, how do people find you and your books?
Well, the easiest way would be to go to my website, www.ascamacho.com. That's not hard. And of course, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter, at least for now. Or you can go in Barnes and Noble. You can go on Amazon if you really want to, and search my name, and they'll all come up. Or you can email me at ascamacho.com.
I love it.
And I will send you all manner of stuff you don't want, because I want people to find my books.
Well, I think that you may be sending things that people absolutely want.
Yay.
So, Austin, it has been thrilling to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Erica, thank you so much for inviting me. This was fun, and you guys really do things a little different and in kind of an enjoyable way. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
Kind of enjoyable. We should put that as our tagline.
And we should be like, sign up to watch us. We're kind of enjoyable.
That's the blurb. Come on.
Hey, you know what? Keywords. Drink,
Kind of enjoyable.
talk to authors, and we're kind of enjoyable.
No, this was a lot of fun and intriguing in a way, because like I said, you did ask some questions that not everybody asks. And from now on, whenever I do an interview for a podcast, I'm going to insist that we be drinking, because this is fact.
Yes. Woo! Champion the cause. Pay it forward. I love it. This has been awesome. Thank you so much, Austin. This has been Drinking with Authors, guys. I've been your host, Erica Lance. My amazing co-host today has been Bo Lake. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Now that you've been drinking along with us, we do want to know what you think in drunken terms. And we will see you guys next time.